everybody, my name is John and welcome to How Do You Do? Welcome back to the puppet shop. It's time to make some stuff. Today we are going to make a sippy cup puppet. A puppet made out of a sippy cup. I've been waiting to do this one for a long time and I'm very excited to show you how you can make your very own puppet out of a kid's sippy cup at home. So, if you've watched How Do You Do, we make puppets out of all sorts of things. In the puppet shop, I have tons of materials, but I'm trying to find things that might be in your house that you can make a puppet with. Our daughter has been going through all sorts of different types of sippy cups. This is the kind that, when you flip this little switch, a straw appears. Now, she's really not that into these. She's moved on to a different type of cup. But I was looking at these, and what I love about this little device that lets the straw up and down makes a perfect eyelid. So I thought if we painted this in a really fun way, we could make a puppet. And your puppet will look something like this. Hello! Isn't that cool? So you'll need a sippy cup, something like this, hopefully with some type of thing that makes a straw come up and down. That'll be your eyelid. As long as it has one of those devices, you'll be able to make this puppet at home. Let's see what else you might need for your puppet. So for this craft, you will need your sippy cup. You will also need some paint. For my example, I used spray paint, but spray paint is kind of, it's a little toxic. You have to be outside. Not everyone has spray paint, but really any kind of paint that will cover plastic will work. So I'm gonna use, this is just craft acrylic paint. I think I actually got this at Fred Meyer's. Any type of paint will do. You might have acrylic paint, but some type of paint that you know will cover plastic pretty well. And then you'll need some paintbrushes. You really only need one. I've got tons, but I'll just bring my jar of paintbrushes. And then when we're all done and we want to make some detail on our puppet, that you can really do with anything. And we'll talk about different ways to do that. I'm also gonna bring a big piece of paper. I don't get any paint on my board. So let's get started with that. First thing you're gonna do is take your cup apart. So this might be a little different for the type of cup that you have in your house, in your home. First, I'm going to take the straw out, so we don't need that for this project. We'll save that. Who knows what that could become later. So now I have what's going to be the head of my monster, and this is the little device that will go up and down. And I found that I can very gently take that apart, which is going to make painting a whole lot easier. So I've got what will be the head of my monster. I've got my eyelid. And then I've got what will be the body of the puppet, though I don't need this tag, so I'm going to use some scissors. This you might need a grown-up for, and get rid of this little cloth handle. That's a little harder than I thought. There we go. We'll throw that away. It's got this little ring on it. I don't want that ring there, so I'm also going to be very careful and get rid of this. Ta-da! And do I want to save that? I'm not going to save that for this project. So now I have what will be the body, the head, and the eyelid. Now, let's get ready to paint. So I'm going to bring a piece of paper over because I don't want to get any paint on my nice work table. Now there's so many different ways to paint. When I paint, I usually have some water with me. I'm going to wear gloves today just because I don't want to get paint on my hands. The acrylic paint is a fine paint to get on your hands. For my example puppet, I made the eye white, which is typically what I do with my paints. And let's see, I have colors. The colors that I have to play with today are pink, purple, teal, blue, orange, and green. So let's do some design work here. Let's decide what colors we're going to use. I think I'm going to make the body of my monster. I'm feeling teal and green today. For the head, I will probably paint it as well with those same colors, but the eyelid, let's make it kind of a fun color. Let's go orange. I'll save these two paints for another project, another day. And I do want my eye to go white. I don't have that in this kind of paint, but I have some acrylic paint in my acrylic paint box. I'm gonna go grab that. Hold on. I have these in my puppet shop. These are just some glass. These are probably for an amuse-bouche. If I was gonna have a fancy dinner, I wouldn't use these anymore, but I would put a little something to bite in there. So we'll use these for different colors of paint. You can see I've already used them for other colors. So let's get all organized. We're gonna do a little plate of green, a little pane of blue, a little thing of orange. I have one of white, got some water, and I've got my brushes. I think we're ready to go. So, first thing I'm gonna do is put my paint in its different containers. This is acrylic paint. This is what I use to paint set models with. Always shake your paint before you open the lid, just in case it needs to be worked on a little bit. This might take a few coats. Sometimes when you paint plastic, because it's so smooth, sometimes the paint, it'll look see-through, and I really want this to look solidly painted. That's why I do love spray paint, because it kind of covers any surface, especially plastic, really, really well. So when you're not using spray paint, whatever paint you use might take a few coats. Let's start with the white, because I do want that to be pure white as can be. And I'm going to start with just painting where the inside of the eye will be. And probably when this is all dry, then I'll repaint this, I don't know, this tire, this ring around the eye. There's a kind of a front and a back. We won't see the back, so I don't need to paint the whole eyeball. And then when you paint, sometimes depending on what the surface is, you'll see the streaks of your brush. So I kind of slather the paint on there, and I'm just going to very lightly kind of get all the brush strokes going the same way. And at that, to me, I don't know if you can see, we'll go really close, looks a little streaky, but it's pretty good coverage. So I'm going to let that dry, and then I will probably do another coat and see if I can get that looking a little smoother. So that'll be the eye. Put that over there. Let's wash our brush. Acrylic paint or craft paint, sometimes you mix water in with it. That will make it, if you're working on canvas or you're painting paper, that'll make it sometimes the paint smoother. But I want to use this paint pretty much without any water in it, because it'll make the paint a little thicker. So ombre is one of my favorite things to do. Ombre is when you have a color kind of fading into another color. So when I use spray paint on this guy, I had kind of a melony pink and a dark pink. So I painted it the lighter color and I put the dark pink on it, so it transitions from kind of a light pink to a dark pink, and that's an ombre. You can go from a light color to a darker color. You can even go through many different colors. So I kind of want this to still do that. So I think I want this to be green at the top and kind of turn into the teal color. Also, I'm not sure it'll look smooth because this is spray paint. It almost looks just really a soft transition. I think I might end up using some brush stroke and make it transition in a different way. So let's just start and see how good or bad this paint covers. It actually covers kind of nice. Look at that. So let's just get a little bit of green on here. I'm going to go green almost all the way, and we'll bring the blue into the green. And what's nice is there's a lid on this, so I don't really have to paint where this lid screws on. It also gives me a really nice place to hold. Same thing with the bottom. I'll probably paint the bottom when we're all done, but by holding it there and there, I can actually paint almost the whole thing. And now I'm going to hold it on the end. We're going to blend a little blue in here. It's called a wet blend because we're using wet paint on wet paint. It's called a wet blend if I was painting a set. So I'm going to just kind of put a bunch of blue on the bottom here, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of blend it into the green. And when I do ombre painting, usually I do use a spray because that makes it a little bit easier to achieve the transition of one color to another. What I'm kind of do is kind of go back and forth. So I've put my blue on, and there's a real harsh line there where it changes from the green to the blue, and I want to keep softening that. So now what I'll do is I'll get some more green, and I'll go back into the blue. Let's wash our brush a little bit. Sometimes I use brushes for every color, and sometimes I use one brush for all my painting. Just depends on what I'm trying to do. I'm just going to keep going back and forth, kind of putting the green into the blue and the blue into the green. See if I can get this ombre going. That dry. Let's see if we can get another coat of white on our eyeball while we wait. Now we can move over to our eyelid, which we're going to do an orange. So yeah, I'm just going to keep doing a couple coats until I get kind of the look that I want. You can paint this any way you want to. You could blend a bunch of colors, you could use one color. That's one of the great things about paint, is you can really choose anything you want to do with it. All right, so I've been doing a few coats, letting things dry, and we're getting closer. We're getting closer. So as I've been watching and staring and waiting for them to dry faster, I'm going to do something called spatter painting. I've been looking at my ombre, and it's kind of going from green to blue. You can see it a little bit there. I'd like it to be a little bit more obvious that it's going from green to blue. So this is still a little tacky, but it is drying. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get all the things that I don't want to get paint on them right now a little further away. Let's pick another piece of paper. So I'm going to put my eyelid, which I still think needs another coat, and the headpiece where the eye is. The white looks kind of nice. I just touched it. The pink I'm finding a hard time getting to be the color I want. So spatter painting, when I paint sets, sometimes what I do is I blend some colors and then I literally spatter. I take a brush with really liquidy paint and I throw it on there. It makes little dots. And on sets, that kind of gives it some depth and some texture. So what I'm gonna do is water my two colors down, and I grabbed another darker blue. I might even darken the blue just a little bit so I get a little bit more texture on my monster. And so it shows the ombre a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is take my brush and dry it off. I'm going to literally flick it when it's got paint on it to get little spots on it. So let's start with the green. I am going to put a little water in my paint. Water it down just a little bit. Not the best glass for pouring. And I'm gonna put a little water in the blue. What I'll probably do is spatter the color it is right now. Normally when I paint at the theater, I'm on our stage, which I get paint everywhere. When I'm all done, I just paint the floor, so you didn't know I made such a mess. A little out of practice doing it here in my basement. It's really fun to paint. I miss painting. I like painting a lot. All right, so I'm mixing my water in with my paint so it's just a little bit more liquidy. You want it kind of like, not quite as thick as pancake batter, but a little thicker than cream. You still want it to feel thick like paint, but I just want it to be able to be thrown on to my object with my brush a little easier. If it's too thick, it won't really spatter, splatter. All right, so let's give this a whirl. One of the great things about painting is if you kind of don't like it, you can kind of just let it dry and try again. So I kind of have a front happening. So what we're gonna do is, I think what I'm gonna do is prop this up. Like this. So I can spatter on it. Let's start with our green. Let's see if that even, yeah. We'll get some little spots on it. You don't want too much on your brush. Good. I might even try, sometimes when you have older brushes that are really bristly, you'll get even a better throw of paint. Watch, this is the moment where Kit Kat comes up here. It's better. I'll throw some blue on there towards the bottom, because I want the bottom to be more blue, the top to be more green. Definitely feels a little bit more, I don't know, reptile-y with kind of these spots. I like that. I definitely am going to have more of a front to my puppet, more of a back to my puppet. I could let this dry and do this all over, but I might do something with the back. This brush is a lot better. Good. Let's get some more green on there, on the top. I'm liking that. I hope you can see that. This gets messy. A lot of time when you make art, you have to get a little messy. It's kind of one of the best parts. Good, and then now I'm gonna darken my blue just ever so slightly. just so it feels, I think by adding some darker blue to the bottom, it'll feel like it's transitioning a little bit better. See if that's dark enough. All right, I think that's kind of cool. I don't want to lift it up. When you spatter, also because it's liquidy, if I lifted it up, what do you think would happen? It might start to run. So we're gonna let that sit for a bit. I've got a few more coats to do on my other pieces. We're getting pretty close to the body of our sippy cup monster. So, now that everything's drying, it needs a little bit of time, I was thinking, what if you don't have paint in your house? So I'm going to show you another way that you can make a monster without using paint at all, using the sippy cup. So I've got another sippy cup here. I removed the straw. This time though, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to take what we're going to call the eye mech, or the eyeball of our puppet, and I'm not going to use this for the body. I have been saving all sorts of plastic things from my home over this COVID situation. So I found this really fun log cabin maple syrup bottle. I am going to glue this to the top of this container, giving me a very different type of monster to look at. And I'm going to use, instead of paint, a sock. I thought that could be a really fun way to make a monster without using paint. I'm just gonna cover it over on top of my bottle. Now I've got like this fuzzy little monster body. So I'm gonna glue that on. I've still got a lot of extra, so I'm gonna cut some of that off with my scissors, just like this. And then I think with some careful cutting, we can cover our eyeball lid and the ring here, also in this fur, making a really fun monster. So my hot glue gun is warming up, and this is another way you can make the same type of monster without using paint at all, with a sock and some glue. So once my hot glue gun is all warmed up, I'll start gluing this together, and then my other monster will be dry, and we'll put some detail and some fabrication, some fun, maybe fur or feathers, and maybe a pupil, and make it really start to come to life. All right, friends, so everything's been drying. So we've made, this was our example, and I took his little feather off because I think I might also change this one up a little bit because I'm now in my fabrication mode. My favorite part about making puppets is once the puppet's working is what goes on at the final details. It's my favorite part about making puppets, but you have to make sure the puppet's working well before you get to do all the fun stuff on top. So I'm gonna replay and remake this one, cover it a little bit differently. But we have this one, which I'm gonna cover in something different. We have our sippy cup monster that we made out of a fuzzy sock, and I left the eye pupil orange. I didn't paint it this time because eyes can be orange. So it's ready for its pupil and maybe some more detail. And then my painted one is pretty much dry. I started doing some streaks on it, some painty streaks, to make it look a little bit more like fur. And I'm gonna do a little bit more hand painting on this because I've got other types of paint in my shop. So I'm going to put the eyelid on now. It goes like this. All right, so that's all working. So I'm gonna do a little bit more painting on this guy. And then, so in your puppet shop or in your craft zone, in your home, you can really use anything you have to make these puppets look a little bit more crazy and fun. Of course, in my shop, I have tons of fur and feathers. So I think this one I'm gonna use some more of my boa feathers to make him look a little bit more monster-like, and we'll give him a pupil. And remember, if you've not seen some of our puppet videos, my favorite thing to make eye pupils out of are those little fuzzy stickers that you put on the bottom of chairs to make them not slide because they're already sticky. They stick and they're perfectly round. So I have some of these. These are little Velcro ones. You can get these at almost any store. So we're gonna do some pupils. I've got some fur. I think I'm gonna recover this guy in fur. Some feet. These feet were made out of foam because that's something I have in my shop, but also just using paper and putting a little foot on the bottom can make it look even more like a little creature. So I've got some bits and bobs, I've got some feathers, I've got some fur. I'm gonna use some of my acrylic paint and paint my painted monster a little bit more. And I'm gonna warm up my glue gun again and make these puppets look complete and finished. So here we go. Let me use some of my acrylic paint. let's get some, I'm liking this kind of green, so I'm gonna get some other shades of green going on my monster. And away we go. So, put some of my paint, let's use some of this color. Maybe some of this darker green could be kind of fun. More detailed brush. Maybe this guy. All right, so let's do some fun painting. I think I'm going to paint this guy to look a little bit more like he's got some fur. I like this brush. Yeah. All right, so I'm just going to do some fur lines. Alright, I like that. That can be our painty guy. I might even do a little bit more when that dries. So I'm going to let that dry over there. And while that's drying, let's add some fur and pupils and other fun things to our other puppets. While this was drying, I made a cup of coffee. Yum, yum. Okay, so let's start with our sock-covered puppet. Let's put a pupil on, because that will make him really look like he's come to life. I'm going to use one of these. This is a rubber chair stopper. I'm going to put that carefully just in the middle. Yeah. Now, this one's a little thick, which is making this hard to close down a little bit, but I think if I put something, maybe some eyelashes on there, it'll still look like it's closing. So that is his little eyelid. Boop. Hello. I was going to put some some feathers on him. I want a little puff of boa. Feathers, feathers everywhere. Thank goodness I have a cat. So I'm going to put a little hot glue on the very head and very carefully watching my fingers. If you've watched other videos, my trick is if you ever get hot glue on your fingers, rub them together. It'll get the glue to dry faster. That's kind of fun. A little extra life. And do I want any more on him? Bottom. I don't. I think I just want a little bit of feather. I don't want to go too crazy on him. So I'll let that dry a little bit better. Let's put him there. See him. This one was my example that I painted with spray paint. I had this really fun fur. If you watched our Seussical musical, this is the fur that was on the monkey coats. It's a really fun fur because of all the colors. So I'm going to just recover this guy. Make kind of a furry monster. We're being very inspired and influenced, of course, by the Muppets, because they always seem to use fur. I like that. It just kind of looks like a big blob of furry fur. I'm going to lift this up. Excuse me. And I don't want it to move or fall off. You can use any glue if you don't have a hot glue gun. It's just hot glue. Dries so fast, but it is so hot. And then I have a little strip of this fur. That one. Let's see. I did. A nice little piece. That'll work. Put that on the eyelid. Yeah, I think that'll look cool. And then when it pops open, I kind of want the fur to fall over it. So when his eyes close, you don't see anything, and then his eye is a surprise. That's kind of fun. So let's very carefully put some glue on top of the eyelid. And just a little bit of fur, and all of a sudden he looks like a little monster. I love that. So I used foam feet on this one because that's something I had. Let's just use paper for this guy. Let's do green. Green and pink. Good colors together. And I'm just gonna draw some monster feet on here. I'm gonna take a little Sharpie. I'm gonna leave a little bit of paper underneath the guy so I have something to glue it to. And let's just draw, we'll do 3 little feet. I'm just gonna mark what's on the bottom here. Doing this very loosey-goosey. I'm gonna cut this away, but cut to the inside of the Sharpie line, because I don't want to see a black line on this. There's a pair of feet. Let's see. Yeah, now that's just green. Once we're here, I've got my markers out, which I always do. Let's just put some stripes on it, because goodness knows I love a stripe. There, now I have some feet on my monster. Hello. Hello. Now, of course, this one you can see my hand operating it. We could get really fancy and maybe put a piece of string so it could open without you, but I think sometimes it's fun to see the puppeteer working a puppet. This one I think is done. I like that. Let's see how close to drying my other guy is. I'm gonna touch it. Still a little wet. That means I can make some feet for it while it's drying. There's my feet for my painted monster. Let's get some green pom-poms. I'll sort through here. Find some green ones for my sock-covered monster. I've got a couple different shades of green going. Maybe even a few different sizes. When you change the size of things by having a couple different shades of color when you paint something or size of objects, it gives it more texture. So if all of these are the same size, it reads one way, but by mixing it up, it kind of gives a little bit more depth to your puppet. So we'll put those on. I'll save this for my painted monster. You're done, so I'm gonna put you away. All right, so let's just put a few pom-poms around. Why not? See, fair enough. I like that. Just a little extra. I'm gonna call that one done now. So I'll put that over, let those dry all the way. Save these pom-poms for later. Let's see, how are you drying? I should be patienter. I should wait. I'm gonna go for it. See if we can put our pupil on. Glue our claw on. All right. Let's lean you back so you can see this. Pupil right there. There's his eye. Bonk, bonk. And let's put a little hot glue on our paper claw. Kind of nice. Can see that. All right, and let's add some feathers. Boop, boop. Now these monsters, I haven't made an official mouth. I think where this cap is, there's a little, that kind of looks like a mouth, but I kind of like that you're not quite sure what it is and all of a sudden it comes to life. So I think I have all 3 of my little monster puppets all done. This is kind of exciting. So, there we have 3 different ways that you could make a sippy cup monster, or taking the sippy cup top and gluing it to another type of container. Remember this one we used a sock that we glued over and put a little bit of fluff on the eyelid using paper for the hands. This one was my spray painted one, which if you don't have spray paint, you can also cover these in anything. You could cover them in pieces of paper, you could cover them in fur, you could cover them in an old t-shirt, maybe you found an old sweater that has a fun texture to it. So we've got this guy that opens and looks at you. And then we've got our painted one. I did some kind of painting of fur and used a boa. So these are our sippy cup monsters. I hope you can find a sippy cup in your house, or maybe next time your family goes to the grocery store, you can find one. They're in most grocery stores where they sell baby stuff. And you could make yourself a monster that can peekaboo and see you. Awesome. Thanks everybody. Thank you for joining me on How Do You Do. It's so nice to see you again. I hope you can make some puppets. Stay tuned. Every Wednesday we're gonna have a new craft to make together. And remember, I go live on Tuesdays, so if you're free around 1 o'clock for lunch, join me in the puppet shop. Sometimes I'll be in my kitchen, where I love to answer questions or take feedback. Also, the live ones are a great time for you to ask. Maybe there's something you'd like me to make that you'd like to learn how, and you can ask me, or ask me questions about what's happening at the theater or down in the puppet shop. So those are Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, and then every Wednesday, a video like this will premiere. So thank you so much. I hope you have some fun time making some things in your house, in your puppet shop, and I'll see you later on How Do You Do? Bye, everybody.